Operations Chief, and Abhijit, who's our Vice President of Business Development. And we're here today to tell you about why every seed deserves a chance. And we'd like to tell you the story through the eyes of Paulo. Now, Paulo is a farmer who I met when I was working in Brazil in sustainable agriculture before I started doing my MBA at Cornell. And when I met Paulo, he was losing 10% of his tomato crop that year because pathogens were attacking the seeds during germination. Now, germination is the most important phase of a plant's life because that's when yields are determined, and it's also the point in a plant's life where it's most susceptible to disease. Now, for Paulo, that 10% loss represents money that he can't use to put his kids through college. It also represents money that he can't make in order for his life to be more comfortable for his family. And for the community in which he resides, it also means fewer tomatoes, and as market economics would dictate, more expensive tomatoes. But there are millions of Paulos around the world, including here in New York State, that represent $12 billion of crop losses due to seed-borne pathogens. And it's not just Paulo's problem, right? It's our problem. It means a more food-insecure world. Now currently, pathogens like bacteria, viruses, and fungi attack the seeds during germination. And the only way to treat those is through the synthetic and sometimes harmful chemicals. So our solution to this problem is Bioseed. Now Bioseed boosts agricultural yields because it's an organic seed-coating technology that's able to destroy all the pathogens that are on the seed and in the soil immediately surrounding it, so that the plant grows up in a healthy environment and therefore maximizes yields. So how does it work? A seed is coated with our proprietary technology. When it comes into contact with moisture in the soil, that's when the enzymes activate and turn into free radicals that then destroy the pathogens. Now this process can last anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks and can be engineered depending upon the crop type. And over time, the solution dissipates into the environment, and it's a completely biodegradable solution. So what else is out there in terms of competition? Well, there are lots of virucides and fungicides, but very few bactericides. Also, the problems at hand can only be treated one at a time. There is no comprehensive solution, but Bioseed is comprehensive. It's able to destroy bacteria, viruses, and fungi all at the same time. It's also an organic solution, derived naturally from milk enzymes and magnetite, a naturally occurring element on Earth. Finally, its scalability across crops is vast. It can be applied to certain fruits, most vegetables, and even grains. So here's the opportunity today. A pound of seeds can be literally worth more than a pound of gold. And it can be worth more than a pound of gold if all of those seeds are able to germinate and therefore produce the crops. And those revenues literally represent the worth more than a pound of gold. Now this year, $14 billion of seed treatments are going to treat $68 billion of vegetable seeds. Initially, Bioseed is going to target tomato seeds for several reasons, of which are the cross-cultural importance of the tomato, the fact that it's the second most grown crop around the world in vegetables. Also, tomato seed growers are having huge problems with the bacteria that's afflicting their crop. And finally, we've already done a proof of principle concept at our lab at Cornell University. Which leads us to where we are today. So in this proof of principle, not only were we able to prove 100% germination, but all the pathogens that we were seeking to destroy were in fact destroyed. Our IP position is also quite strong. We are the exclusive licensee of 3 IPs that involve the combination of biotechnology and nanotechnology. Finally, we also have 2 letters of interest from big players in the seed market space that are Bayer Crop Sciences and Cicada, who are not only going to dedicate some expertise, but also field use so that we can test the efficacy of our solution. And they're doing this because they recognize the game-changing nature of our solution. So the team behind this venture, I come to the table with 7 years of international sustainable agriculture experience. Margot and Abhijit have wonderful operations and business development experience. And Dr. Maiden, who couldn't be with us today, is a PhD in plant pathology at Cornell University. We also have some all-stars on our board, including Dr. Stéphane Courgy, who's with us today supporting us. We also have Dr. Alan Taylor, who is the world's most cited expert in seed coating, in addition to being a plant pathologist himself. And for the business development side, Wayne Merkelson and Ed Esla are 2 gentlemen who have taken several companies in this space, from conception to successful exit. So Margot's going to talk to you about the economics of Bioseed and how our business model works.
Thanks, Brennan. So UMA will produce this formula and sell it to seed giants like Bayer and Cicada. These companies will in turn coat vegetable seeds with our formula before selling it to farmers and other growers. Now it's important to note that these companies already regularly substitute treatments in and out of their seed coating process protect seeds from specific pathogens. And they are incentivized to use the best pathogen-fighting treatments in order to produce seeds with the highest germination rates. Now, this is absolutely necessary for them to maintain and potentially grow their market share of farmers, but it also helps to reduce a very real risk of legal action from farmers due to seed failure, which on average results in lawsuits that have a $250,000 loss to these seed giants. Now, the microeconomics of our value proposition also work. Bayer's global pricing team has helped us understand the cost and margins associated with different seed treatments. As you can see here, Bayer is currently charging $18.46 for 1,000 untreated tomato seeds. And they've told us that it costs them $2.05 to coat these seeds with Theorem fungicide, the best available treatment available on the market today for the tomato. But right now they are simply passing through this cost to farmers. They're not making any money on it. This is because farmers are unwilling to pay more for the value of a single fungicide treatment. Now, Bayer's own customer research has shown that farmers would be willing to pay an extra $1.44 for a treatment like UMA's that provides a trio of bactericide, fungicide, and viricide all in one. And the economics for UMA also work because it only costs us 72 cents to produce enough formula to cover 1,000 seeds. So there's plenty of room for us to play on margins. Now, we are seeking $500,000 in order to help us further prove our technology and build out our IP portfolio. And we have worked very closely with our technical advisors and board members in order to map out the key milestones and roadmap to commercialization. First, we will complete quality assurance and seed health testing, including 6 rounds of phytotoxicity testing in greenhouses at Cornell. Next, we will contract the University of Florida to help us complete field efficacy testing. Now, why Florida? Well, first of all, 30% of all tomatoes grown in the US happen to be grown in Florida. Second, Florida is known to have endemic bacteria problems. And lastly, it's just a little bit warmer down there, so we're really able to take advantage of multiple growing seasons. Now, in parallel, we will engage the proper bodies for accreditation and continue working on a proof of principle in the lab for melon and cabbage seeds, because these are crops that also suffer from the same types of bacteria infection as the tomato. $500,000 will help UMA get to the point where we can go to market. But $100,000 today gives us enough capital to complete the testing and collect the proper data to complete USDA, EPA, and organic certification. And it also equips us with the data to fully engage our potential partners and customers. Now I'll let Abhijit talk to you a bit about our financial forecasts.
Thank you, Margaret. So we've told you about what we're seeking today and how we want to plan to use those funds. But the question then becomes, when will UMA become profitable and how? We're here to tell you that UMA Bioseeds can become profitable by 2017. That's literally 1 full year in production. Some might ask, how's that possible? Here's how. The nature of the seed coating market is such that the top 10 players command a whopping 70% of the market share. What that means for a B2B business like ours is that we likely need 1 or maximum 2 clients to get enough market share that drives home revenue to recoup our 2-year investment costs. That green bar of 2.1 million right behind me is reflective of that 1.5% market share that alone we need in the tomato coating market to get to a net income positive state. There's another point I want to drive home, is that we don't want to limit ourselves to being tomato seed formulators. But a success in tomato will give us a replicable model that we then want to use for other seeds, such as melon and cabbages. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, Brendan, Margaret, and myself, if we would leave you with one word related to UMA Bioseed, the word would be potential. Potential for farmers to save on those $12 billion of crop losses that they suffer each year due to seed failure. Potential for society to increase agriculture yields and have more food on our table. Potential for environment to have less toxic, less energy intensive, and more organic solutions fight for our food problems. And potential for investors to have 7 to 10 times returns on earnings in less than 5 years in solutions, ideas, concepts, and companies that are literally sowing the seeds of a successful, sustainable future. That is UMA Bioseeds. Thank you.
So, do you have to change the format formulation depending on the soil properties and the environmental factors?
Excellent question. So as we're looking to do this across several different crops, we do want to do testing, but the great thing about the formula is that it's using enzymes that turn into free radicals. Because they turn into free radicals by nature are able to destroy all types of pathogens, viruses, fungi, bacteria, so on and so forth. So the formulation difference really results in how long do you want, as the farmer, to have this bioshield ingredient be active into the environment. Does it need to be for 3 weeks or 6 weeks? That could depend upon the size of the seed, how much protection you want, what's the soil conditions, etc. And that can all be tweaked on an as-needed basis. Yes, sir? Right, so great question, and as far as we know, there is not a question of shelf life. It's quite stable. In fact, part of the IP is that there's 3 parts. One of it is the fact that the enzymes are more potent. The other part is the stabilization. So the enzymes, that part is actually what gives it an extra shelf life.
Can you give us a little background as to how the IP was developed? Where does it reside? You're productizing it. Just give us the...
Yeah, sure. So I'm going to take your question and I'm going to really explain, because as investors, you're buying into the idea, you're buying into the management team, and I think you're also buying into the IP as the core asset, right? So the IP is consisting of 3 parts. And those 3 parts are, 1, potency. So the enzymes are more potent. And that's the biotechnology part. The second part is the stabilization. That's the nanotechnology part, using magnetite in order to stabilize these enzymes. Both of those IP were actually developed at Cornell. The third part of the IP is actually the process. So basically, when these stabilized enzymes come into contact with water during the seed coating part, that's when they activate. That's the third part of the IP. All 3 of these IPs are owned by Zymtronics. The gentleman who owns Zymtronics is also our board member, Dr. Stefan Corgi, and the inventor of those technologies. And he's here somewhere in the back. There he is. Hi, Stefan. And that's how those technologies work. We are the exclusive licensee of those 3 IPs for the agricultural field of use. Finally, those 3 IPs are being protected, or are already protected, in 6 agricultural markets: Japan, China, India, the European Union, the United States, and finally Canada. Yes, sir.
So like with tomatoes, there's potential for rot after the plant starts, right? So you can't kill everything in the soil. So I guess my question would be, if you sprayed this on the plant, would it help?
That's a great question, and I think there's a potential for that, but what we're trying to do with the technology, again, some of the tests that are coming out from Syngenta is that if you're able to protect the seed during the germination phase, yields are able to increase by 7 to 17%. That test was done with corn. The efficacy test that we would like to do now is with tomatoes.
Just want to quickly add to that, sir. So some of those diseases like ragdoll, you see like bacterial infection on leaves after the plant has germinated, would in fact due to the problems that the pathogens attack the seed during germination stage. You just see them later. So a lot of those should disappear if our testing is proven successful through Bioseed. You wouldn't need to spray anything on them.
I just want to clarify the patent issue.
Yes.
Did any of you as students do anything in the research, development, or execution of the IP?
No, we did not.
Is the company a sole owned property of Cornell, or is it an independent company that just licensed its technology to students?
Right, so it's an independent company that is giving us the exclusive license for this agricultural field of use.
Okay, thank you.
What's the process to harvest the enzyme?
The process of harvesting the enzyme, so that part is actually a trade secret that Dr. Stefan Corgi could maybe detail in better words. I can't really give you how that's done, unfortunately.
But what's the time? I mean, can you get enough of the enzyme to meet your projections then?
For our projections?
Yeah.
Yes, the enzymes are naturally occurring in milk. Unfortunately, the dairy industry is increasing in a boom. It's growing by 12% this year. So we believe there's enough enzymes on hand in order for us to manufacture our product.
Can you just go into a little bit more detail about the relationship with Zymtronics and the ownership of the company and how that relationship works?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Zymtronics, Dr. Stefan Corgi, who's the inventor of the technology, it's a platform technology. The Cornell patents the two IPs that I discussed, which are the potency and the stabilization. That Cornell gave Zimtronics an exclusive license to use that platform technology. Part of their agreement is to use all fields of use for that platform technology. Zimtronics is using this technology in the pharmaceutical space. That's where their efforts are concentrated. So what they're doing with us is they're giving us the exclusive license to use it in the agricultural field of use, which fulfills the obligations they have to Cornell and allows them the space in order for them to focus entirely on the pharmaceuticals. From a revenue perspective, 5% of what we are selling is what they get as well as royalties for a license contract that we have.
And ownership with this is all student owned.
This is all student owned.
And your
yes.
board members don't own any equity in the company?
No, they do not. Oh, we have one more question. Sorry? Indeed it is. It is a perpetual exclusive license. Great question. Thank you. Thank you.